Hi, I'm Mara Wells, and I'm here for Romance Author StoryTime to read you an excerpt from Cold Nose, Warm Heart. The section I'm going to read to you is the Meet Cute. So what you need to know in terms of setup before this moment is that Caleb, our hero, has inherited a rundown old apartment building in Miami Beach, and he is on the property to inspect it the first time when he walks into the lobby and an adorable little poodle comes running at him and he scoops it up. The owner of the poodle comes to get her dog back, and he finds himself strangely reluctant to let the dog go. So we're picking up in the middle of the scene. Riley has just told Caleb that the dog's name is Lulu. Caleb says, "Lulu's a cute name. How old is she?" "She's a rescue, so we're not completely sure. The vet guessed around 8 or 9 years old." Riley's back pocket buzzed. She pulled out her phone, frowned at it, swiped, and tucked it away again. Should have named her Flojo, though. "Is that a rapper name or something?" Caleb continued to pet Lulu, but apparently he wasn't doing it exactly right. The poodle maneuvered her head so he could get behind her jaw. "Flojo? Florence Griffith Joyner, the fastest woman of all time?" The woman laughed, a light and airy sound that hit him like a shot of his favorite sipping rum, straight to the gut. My girl here loves to run. A bit too much, I'm afraid." "She's a getaway artist, huh?" He didn't usually chat up residents of buildings he was scoping out, but he was curious about her and her dog. When was the last time he'd been curious about anything? Anyone. When the judge's gavel came down and his father's sentence was announced, Caleb's whole world had turned upside down. He'd been scrambling for so long to put things to rights that he'd forgotten what it was like to simply be, to have a conversation with a stranger for no other reason than she and her little dog interested him. The gentle smile he'd given the woman with the walker spread to a full-out grin. "An escapee? A dog dodger?" She laughed again. "Indeed she is. Luckily, everyone in the building knows her. She rarely gets far." "This building?" Caleb didn't care for the sound of that. Pets could do a lot of damage in a small space, especially in a situation where all the units were rentals. Owners fixed up their places before selling, but renters moved on. "I thought no pets were allowed." The blonde flushed, turning almost as pink as the polish on her nails. "That's what the lease says, for sure, but you can, get special permission from the manager in special circumstances that are, special." So pet damages were another thing Carson would have to answer for. The list of grievances grew by the second, and Caleb felt even more justified in his decision to fire the guy as soon as possible. But none of it was this woman's fault. "She seems like a special dog." A special dog who didn't live here. The woman was visiting. She'd said as much. Maybe her Grams had a cat or something. That was why she'd been flustered. Didn't want to rat out her own Grams. He ruffed the poodle's fur and widened his smile. She smiled back, and it did weird things to him, narrowing his focus until all he could see was her. The wide lips, the way her eyes tilted at the corners, the color still staining her cheeks. Would she say yes if he suggested a coffee date, drinks, dinner? Her left hand darted up to tuck one of those wild curls behind her ear. No ring. What was her name? That was what he should ask first. Say something, say something. But nothing came out, and the silence grew longer and more difficult to break. She licked her lips, drew in a breath. Maybe she'd ask his name, ask him out. The dog squirmed in his arms as if even she knew someone needed to break the awkwardness. "Come on, Lulu, let's go." The woman reached for her dog. Caleb knew he should hand her over, but then Lulu turned her head so he could dig in behind her ears, which he did. She grunted a doggy sigh of satisfaction and angled her head, encouraging him to catch the other side. "I'm sorry." The woman sighed too, so forcefully that a curl bounced on her cheek. "It's a bit embarrassing how shameless she is. Her first owners must have been very affectionate. She's sweet and well socialized. I can't imagine anyone giving her up. But they did, in the cruelest way. People are terrible sometimes, They certainly are." Caleb flashed his last visit with his dad, separated by a pane of glass, surrounded by other inmates and vigilant guards. "Even people you think you know." Her surprised eyes locked with his. "Isn't that the truth? Luckily, dogs are good through and through. All the way to the bone, you could say." Her optimistic words washed over him, soothing the tightness in his neck that never quite went away. The lilt of her accent sounded local, but more musical than that of a typical South Floridian. She settled a hand on the dog's back just below the hot pink collar. Their hands were an inch apart, then half an inch, when she slipped her fingers under the band to give a good scratch. The poodle's fluffy tail thumped double time against his arm. What would it be like if he moved his hand that small distance to touch her? Although he kept up the steady pressure under Lulu's ear, his mind wandered to how the woman's skin would feel. As warm and soft as it looked, He was holding his hand very, very still, careful of her space, careful not to spook her, when Riley's fingers slipped from under the pink collar and brushed against his. Contact. Pinky finger to pinky finger. Accidental? Or had she wondered too what it would feel like? It was like he'd imagined, only better, warmer, softer. Both of them stopped petting the dog. He stared at their fingers. She stared at their fingers. He wanted to slide his hand until he covered hers, but that wasn't like him. He didn't touch women he just met, no matter how soft the skin or how good they smelled. Was it strawberries? Something fruity filled his nostrils, and he inhaled deeply, reminding himself that he didn't do random hookups like his father. He was sensible in his romantic life, dating women with similar interests and incomes, so they were always on a level playing field. But he also couldn't move his hand. She didn't move either, not toward him or away. And then her fingers curled in Lulu's hair, and when they uncurled, she put a few breaths of space between them. He itched to close the gap and feel her skin again. Inappropriate, he scolded himself. You're not some kind of caveman who can't control his urges. But he felt like one. Then he felt something else. The frantic wiggle of a dog with a mission. He'd been around Mr. Pom-Pom enough to recognize the signs, so he crouched down to let Lulu go off to do her doggy business. She didn't go far, though, before copping a squat. Oh no, oh my gosh, the woman pulled at his arm and let her drag him away from the scene of the dog crime. Oh, I'm sorry, really, really sorry. No wonder she beelined for the elevator before I could get her leash on. Hang on, I'll be right back. She danced next to the elevator where, like many Miami Beach buildings that boasted a common area lobby, a door displayed the stick figures universally signaling a public restroom. Soon she was back, miles of paper towels heaped in her hands and trailing behind her. The lobby restrooms mostly used during the holiday party in December and sometimes by the mail carrier. Oh, and that time Rhonda in 202 forced some questionable sausage on the cutie pie UPS guy when he delivered her new shower seat. It's usually not a high traffic area, but I will definitely need to restock the paper products after today. She tore off a few feet of paper towels and handed them to him, then stooped down to drop some on the floor, still chattering in what was apparently a nervous habit. He found himself leaning toward her, the sound of her voice, waiting for the next syllable to fall from those berry lips. About a public restroom. Good Lord, what was wrong with him, waiting to hear more about delivery folks with intestinal distress and paper restocking protocols? She's really a very good dog. The woman gave him another wad of towels, although he wasn't sure what she expected him to do with them. She swiped more around on the floor with her bare feet. We were at Graham's longer than usual, and we were on our way back to the dog park when she ran for that stupid elevator. Swipe, swipe. She pressed more towels and more words on him. And she is getting older. It's hard to find homes for older dogs. You know, I couldn't take her to a shelter not knowing what might happen. That's how I ended up with her. I'm sorry I waylaid her. He finally found his voice, although it didn't sound much like him, rusty, croaky. He cleared his throat and tried again. It's okay. These things happen. She nodded so vigorously that more hair flipped out of her ponytail to wave wildly around her face. Sadly, they happen pretty often with her. At home, she has her pads in the patio, but there are still accidents. She stopped wiping the floor for a moment to inspect him from head to toe. Sorry about the shoes. Shoes? He looked down. Sure enough, they'd taken a bit of spray. Her bottom lip shifted back and forth as though she were chewing on the inside of it. I can have them cleaned for you? Do dry cleaners even take shoes? I'm not sure. Maybe it's easier to give you money for a new pair. What do you prefer? Prefer? He'd prefer that she stop throwing paper towels at him and look him in the eye. Her raggedy cutoffs, her Grams living in this old building. She didn't need the extra expense of his designer shoes. He didn't have to force his smile. I said it's okay. It was an accident. She fluttered her hands at him up and down. There must be something I can do. Have dinner with me. He got his wish. Her eyes flew to his and locked there, shocked. She squashed the last clean paper towel in a tight ball and let it fall. From the waist up, she was motionless, but her toes tap-tapped a nervous beat. You don't even know my name. I don't know yours. That's easy to fix. What's your name? She shot out a hand to shake his. I'm Riley. Riley Carson. And you are? He didn't shake her hand. He couldn't. I'm here to fire you. I hope you enjoyed meeting Caleb and Riley and Lulu. This book is available from all major retailers, and an audiobook version is available from Dreamscape. If you have any questions, please ask me in the comments. I'm hanging around this evening to answer them. Thank you.